A lot of poker players really underestimate the mental part of poker. The mental part of poker, in my opinion, is just about as important as the technical parts of it. And not having your mental game there, falling into your B game, your C game while you're playing, is really going to cost you a lot of money, and actually is going to be quite wasteful of your time. So in this video, I'm going to go over 3 areas that I think are important to cover when we're talking about the mental part of poker. The first area is going to be preparation, like how do you prepare to play a cash game session or a tournament. And then focusing at the table so that you don't tilt. So that's the second area. Tilt is going to be probably the number one thing that you need to focus your mental game on. And the third part of it is what I would call like post session. So after a cash game session or after a tournament, day 1, day 2, even, maybe even luckily after a final table, what are you doing after this session to kind of review what happened, to kind of get yourself, kind of detox your brain a little bit so you can get ready for the next day. So let's get into the first one, which is preparation. How do you prepare, for a cash game session, for, a tournament? And I would kind of equate poker to being like a prize fighter, like a professional boxer or professional MMA fighter. And you think about all the things that they do to prepare for a fight, and it's really a big deal, right? There's so much they do around diet, fasting or whatever it is. They have to cut weight, but then just making sure they're resting, eating well, and then also obviously constantly training and preparing. Think about, you need to prepare for poker in that same way. Poker is a sport. Poker is very, very difficult these days. There's so many good players out there. Even at the kind of low to mid stakes, everyone's getting so much better with, the solvers and all the other kind of education out there. So you really, really have to prepare, because you have to, look for every single edge that you can possibly get. So the first thing is just getting enough sleep, making sure that you're sleeping before your sessions, before a tournament. There's all these things that you can read online about, things that you shouldn't do. Don't have your phone screen on, don't look at electronics, at least like 30 minutes before bed. Do things like don't drink alcohol too late, maybe don't even eat too late, and just try to get to bed at, a sort of a regular schedule, and just keep to that schedule so that you have the same kind of rhythm going on. And then that will just help you, get enough sleep, to be able to play poker. And a lot of even older players, they end up late regging sometimes, right? Because, especially for poker tournaments, when you have very, very long sessions, it's very, very taxing, right, on you and your mental state and your body. So if you don't really have that endurance, it's okay to register a little late. You're making a trade-off to come in a little bit shorter when other people have bigger stacks. You have to know how to navigate that sort of, whatever it is, 40 to 30 big blind range, if that's, around the point in which you're entering the tournament. But saving those couple of hours in the morning for you to get a little bit of extra rest might be helpful, and also to shorten your day. So there's all these different tactics that you can take, but definitely just making sure that your mind is going to be all the way there at the end of a very long cash game session or a very long poker tournament day, right? Some poker tournament days go 12, 13 hours. And I know for me, at the end of those days, my brain is completely shot, and I'm just running on fumes and trying not to make any mistakes. But then other than the sleep part of it, just making sure that you're eating well. Food is really, really important for your energy. So try not to eat a whole bunch of junk food before you play. Again, think about prize fighters and what they're eating. Try to go for protein, right? Whether or not you're a meat eater or vegetarian, at least try to get some protein, some good fiber. Try not to maybe overload it on too many carbs, but carbs do give you that kind of slow fuel, right? So if you hear about marathon runners or something, right? Eating pasta, before they go run, and it's because that kind of gives them that slow energy that sort of goes out through the day. Just make sure that you're eating a balanced diet before you go and play poker as well. So just getting enough sleep, eating really well, but then also just making sure that you're preparing, right? So a lot of times before tournaments and cash game sessions, I may just do some drills, right? I might do drills in a solver. I might just, mentally kind of go through some hands, or even just, for fun, just watch some, some of the high stakes, right, tournaments on Poker Go. Have really, really good players constantly making extremely good decisions, as if you're watching a bunch of people, playing like solver poker. But that's also really helpful. Just watch carefully the hands that they play, the bet sizing that they take, and it should be a good refresher for you. But anything that you're doing to be able to kind of freshen out yourself up before you get there, making sure you get enough rest, making sure you eat well, that type of thing will go a long way, right? That sort of consistency will help you at least, have your mind in the right place while you're playing, and you don't at least kind of lose that edge to other players who might be more well rested, might be more well fed, might be more well prepared. The next thing that we should cover is tilt, right? Tilt is a really, really big problem, obviously for me, for basically all poker players. It's impossible to never tilt, right? We play a very, very stressful game. The game doesn't go our way very often just because there's so much element of luck. Also, it's a game of incomplete information, so you never really know what your opponents have. So then it's always very, very tough to always be making the right decisions. So a lot of things can go wrong that can make you tilt, but the less that you're able to tilt, the more that you can stay in your game, the more that you're going to show success. So what are some things that actually cause people to tilt? Probably the two biggest things that cause people to tilt is number one, losing a big pot and then trying to basically chase your losses, right? Even though poker is a game about getting all the chips in a poker tournament, as many chips as you can in a cash game, how you're getting those chips is very, very important. So if you lose a big pot and you're tilted, you're just trying to get those chips back, and all of a sudden you start playing all crazy, that's really, really bad, right? That's just a good way to punt the rest of your chips off. A second source of tilt, I would say, is also part of, I guess, ego, right? A lot of players will tilt a lot harder when they lose to a player that they think aren't as good as them, or they make a really, really big mistake or something, do something really dumb and basically get lucky. Sometimes this just sends people off a cliff. And in that way, then that person starts maybe targeting that person and starts playing a lot worse, starts playing too many hands. And in the same vein as, the other different ways to have tilt, just kind of playing off of your game is usually not going to be good, right? Especially if you're prepared, especially if you think you're making good decisions. All of a sudden, if you're just making decisions based on pure emotion or just because you're angry that something had happened, that's a really good way to lose all the rest of your chips. So, let's just say in the example of you just lost a big pot, right? You had 60 big blinds, you took a really bad beat in a tournament, and all of a sudden you're down to 20 big blinds, and you're like, man, I really want to be back up to 60 big blinds. I felt really good when I was there. I'm going to do everything I can to get there. But then all of a sudden you start playing hands you're not supposed to play. You're, start maybe targeting that person that bad beat you to try to get chips, back from that person. And even if you do get it back and it might just feel good in that moment, really it's irrelevant in like the long session that is a poker tournament that might go even a couple of days, and how many hands that you're playing, how many chips are you passing back and forth. That one hand against that one player is just sort of a blip in all the decisions that you need to make. So try to think of it this way, is that if you get crippled from 20 big blinds, from 60 big blinds down to 20 big blinds, all that's really happened now is that you are in a new state in which you have to play a 20 big blind stack, and there's a proper way to do that, right? So that's all you should be doing, is just playing a 20 big blind stack correctly and not trying to do something that gets you exactly back to 60 big blinds. You set some sort of arbitrary goal of, getting back my stack within a couple of levels. No, it's just play a 20 big blind stack correctly, and that's how you're going to be able to win a poker tournament. And this is, then getting what we'll talk a little bit about preparation too, but then making sure that you're also preparing yourself, right, to know how to play a 20 big blind stack, to know how to play a 15 big blind stack, to know how to play a 50 big blind stack, right, from all different positions and different phases of the tournament. These things are all things that need education and preparation. So the people that prepare the most, that eat well, that sleep well, right, those that come like really, really prepared and sharp and not tilting, those are the people that are going to show the most success over the long term. So tilting is really, really bad. So make sure that you're not trying to chase your losses. Don't get emotional when you lose a big pot. Don't try to chase it back. Just play your game, play the game that you know, and hopefully the game that you're constantly learning about, and then just play the stack correctly that you have now, right? And in that same way, if you were to lose a play, a big hand to a bad player, a player who made a bad play because they don't know what they're doing, and you're the one who has actually done all this preparation, so much more than that player, you're the one that should be winning all the pots. That's kind of not how poker works, right? You have to be okay with that type of variance. You have to be okay of being on the wrong side of that 70% or 30%. For 20 hands in a row. It could happen, right? That's what running bad looks like, and there's really nothing that you can do about that, and that's just sort of part of the game. So you have to eat those bad beats, even when the player is inferior to you, right? Just think about it this way: you were that player at one point, and also you're going to be that player in tougher fields sometimes. So you just have to understand that that player is doing whatever they do, right? Based on what they know. And if the player isn't playing that way, then there would be no poker, right? if you don't have bad players making bad plays, that player is going to be, you know, if they're really that bad, they're going to be a losing player over time. They just happen to beat you today, unfortunately. But most of the time, they're going to be punting their chips off to somebody else, and they're going to be, you know, net losses on a year based on all their sessions and tournaments or cash games. So, you know, just try not to be too egotistical about it. Try not to get too bent out of shape about people kind of doing stuff like that. And then the last area is going to be, you know, post-session. So make sure that, you know, do your best to remember some tough hands or hands that you're not sure of. Try to even write them down on your phone in a note. You know, I think it's a good tactic to be able to write down notes about hands that were a little bit tough. And then make sure you're going and talking to, you know, your good poker friends, or even, you know, checking things in solvers after the fact. Obviously, you know, no solver use of the tables. But then after the session's over, make sure that you go back over the hands and cover some things, and then just kind of keep adding that to your repertoire of things that you're constantly learning about. It should make you more curious about similar type of situations that you go and able to study those more to get, you know, to basically fill your toolbox, right, with more information. And then also just make sure that you're getting rest, especially if, let's just say, you finish at day one of a poker tournament and day two is tomorrow. Just find your way to be able to get home and detox and just get your brain to sleep, because sleep is so important, and then making sure that the next day you're waking up eating some good before you get out there and play again. But that's basically it. But I mean, when you don't actually pay enough attention to the mental part of poker, think about all the preparation that you do. Think about how good you get at poker, and then think about what happens when you slide into, you know, your B game or your C game. All that work that you did, you just threw it out the window, right? So just again, let's use that analogy of a boxer or MMA fighter who's like one of the best of the world at striking or grappling or whatever it is, or, you know, boxing for a boxer, didn't get enough rest, or they got sick, or, you know, they were injured or something like that, or maybe they just, you know, phoned it in and didn't prepare, and they just got their butt kicked by an inferior, you know, opponent. That's basically the same thing that you're doing with poker, except, you know, especially with poker, it's going to cost you money, like real money, and then that money is going to be hard. And think about all the times that you're just going to run bad and lose a bunch of money just because you're on the wrong side of variance, and then you missed your opportunities to win just because your mind wasn't there. You're really never going to be able to win at poker that way. So make sure you're focusing on the mental part of poker. Thank you for watching, and we will see you at the next video.